Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give everybody a couple more minutes to jump on, and then we're going to get started. So if everybody's ready, if you have any questions throughout the webinar as we go through, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and then we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the webinar. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Jerry Schimmel, who's the Vice President of Sales at P3 Propane Safety.
Thank you, Emma. Welcome everyone to today's PT Risk Management P3 webinar. I'd like to introduce you to Frank Thompson. Frank is the CEO of PT Risk Management, leading risk management insurance firm in the United States. Frank has been in the propane and petroleum industry for over 50 years. He is constantly training people in the industry and has been writing articles for both BPN and LP gas magazines for over 20 years. Please help me in welcoming Frank Thompson. Okay, well, good afternoon, Frank, or I should say good morning. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions with regards to the insurance industry. So the first one is, from your perspective as an insurance provider, how do you feel the propane industry is doing regarding safety and compliance?
Good morning, Jerry. It's good to see you, and thank you for that fine introduction. The problem that we face today is the wide difference between the large propane companies and the smaller companies. The smaller companies do not have the manpower or the resources to keep up with the rules and regulations. And many do not see the need for those rules and regulations. They do not belong to any state or regional propane gas association because they don't see the benefit. But there's an old saying, if you have to teach your insurance agent about the propane industry, you're with the wrong agent.
Good point, Frank. I certainly can understand that. What can happen if propane retailers are not honest while filling out their coverage information application?
Jerry, the insurance companies require applications to be filled out across the board. And unfortunately, the propane industry is overwhelmed with insurance agents that call them and want to quote their insurance. For the vast majority of agents, when asked what insurance companies will you be using, they rattle off 5 or 6 companies that they'll be using. And when we look at the 5 or 6 companies, we realize that they're not even in the insurance for propane. And the owner then has been given the applications and sent over to him. They want him to fill it out. And so the agent or the propane marketer fills out the application, sends it back to the agent, and in due time, the agent comes back and it does not have a quote. Then the propane company owner gets angry, and they blow off that the next agent that calls, and if they are willing to give them a chance, they'll scribble down something on the applications and just send it out. This is leaving a lot of open questions or incorrect answers to questions. The insurance underwriters only use that information to rate the insurance or the propane company, and if there are incorrections in that, they're not the ones that are going to find it. What is going to happen is when loss control goes and does their 60 days after writing the policy, they're going to find out that the answers were not truthful, that this hasn't been accomplished, and they can have their insurance pulled at that point. It can be canceled flat because of the misinformation that's on the applications.
Okay. So it sounds like creating an accurate, consistent application is obviously the direction to go. And if not, there's a potential loss of coverage, which obviously is not something you need.
That's exactly right. And of course, every propane marketer is asked to fill out and sign a warranty that says that they have answered truthfully. And if that is the case, that it is not truthful, again, there's something that the propane marketer is going to lose their insurance.
Okay. Interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about technology and some of the elements that actually are out in the industry that potentially play a role in safety and, you know, especially during the claims process.
Well, the industry has come up with a couple of things that are very important. The first of them that I can think of is a camera on the vehicles. And I, for one, am really pushing for the camera not only to be front facing, but to be rear facing. And one of the reasons is that we just recently had a claim where the bobtail driver was started to back up, didn't see the small car that was behind him, and pushed him for several feet, and making that claim. So we've got to go further than that, and that is we've got to be able to look at the entire record keeping of the propane company. We find that this is something that is very much in need right now, and we are hoping that some of these things like cameras that are on buildings and that are going to help. But more importantly, we have a lack of sophistication in the record keeping. We recently had a claim, and a recent claim that we're aware of. The plaintiff's lawyer brought in a specialist to review the propane company's records. I'd never heard of that before. Fortunately, the records are all computerized. They have a good software program, and this forced the plaintiff's attorney to look elsewhere for a flaw in the case. So we're looking at this from every angle, that we need to get more sophisticated. We need to get rid of the old back of the ticket signature stuff that we see so many times. And we need to get it so that we're looking on top of the industry standards. All of the electrical companies that you bring into your house, the plumbers, they all do it with a computer program, software program, and they give it to you in writing and you sign for it. We need similar to that in the propane industry.
So it sounds a lot like the P3 compliance system, which is obviously a program that manages safety documentation and compliance, reporting. With the advances in technology, at least in documentation, we found that, giving technicians the ability to use tablets in the field to complete their safety documentation has really made a big difference. Obviously, when humans are involved with paper, there are going to be mistakes. In what we found in our experiences, there's been an awful lot of errors in the documentation that we've been able to review, that we've actually had in concert with some of our insurance providers. The compliance system actually has a program called error recognition technology, which will analyze the information that you put in 100% for accuracy, completion, and compliance. While people are filling out all these different forms and documents, there are other resources like the mobile professor, which will provide you with actual code and regulatory guidance. So these kinds of systems, which are cloud-based, and they're easy to store data and access it, essentially you're creating a digital file cabinet to store all of this inspection information and data and forms and photos for each customer. So all of this data that's collected provides the compliance reporting that's important to running a business and keeping it safe with regards to regulators and cathodic inspections and DOT tanks, et cetera. So there are systems like the P3 compliance system out there that'll address a lot of these issues using technology that's going to ultimately mitigate risk. I think we have time for another question for you, Frank. Is there anything up and coming in the industry that would affect propane retailers regarding insurance coverage?
The answer to that, Jerry, is yes. If you are a propane company that has an umbrella, the umbrella carriers are requiring to look to see whether a company has filled a bottle and whether you can trace that bottle by having it completely, when you filled the bottle, did you take down the serial number, and did you also take down person that you were filling the bottle for? Now, we're not talking about RIN. We're not talking about RIN. We're talking about every bottle that's filled has to have that kind of information. So serial number, every cylinder fill needs to be tracked by name, contact information, serial number, the date of the cylinder. And if you're not doing it, the insurance company isn't going to cover you in the event of a claim. And they want to see this, all your cylinder documentation.
Interesting. So cylinder documentation from dispensing stations is what you're referring to, and obviously that's very common throughout the industry. So there seems like there's going to be a new focus on managing that information and documentation and tracking it, which bodes well for P3 because we collect information on appliances, regulators, tanks, piping, etc. So it appears that we might be able to fulfill that requirement going forward as far as tracking the serial number and etc. There'll have to be some sort of a system to track the contact information, but I'm sure with the technology that's available out there today, that we should be able to address this as an industry going forward because it's such a common occurrence for a homeowner to get their cylinders filled for their backyard grills, etc. Okay, well, I appreciate that last question, Frank. That's a new one for us, but certainly important for the audience. I think at this point, I'll check with you, Emma, to see if there are any questions that have come in from the audience.
Yep, it does look like we've had a couple come in. So the first one is, how will the P3 compliance system help me reduce errors out in the field?
Well, the compliance system, which is comprised of a variety of different forms, will actually stop you and warn you if there's information missing. So if you're doing a safety inspection in the field and you forget to put in the regulator date code, you'll get a warning. Do you want to continue going forward? So whatever errors or anything that's incomplete or out of compliance, excuse me, it'll actually identify an expired regulator in the field as you enter this information. So the system will do it through its error recognition technology, which ultimately is going to continue to reduce the number of errors in the field, which is going to continue to mitigate risk.
Great. And another question that we had come through is, somebody was wondering about the benefits of photo documentation.
Well, with the technology that we're using today, everyone has a cell phone or technicians and drivers are utilizing tablets in the field. Photo documentation is really a critical component because it does several things. There are several benefits. It's really the first time a manager or an owner of a company can see the work that's being done in the field by their staff. And because it's date stamped and timed, you have a variety of photos of a tank install or a generator install or even some key service work. It really is a great tool to help protect you against your do-it-yourselfers who, quite frankly, attribute to a pretty significant portion of the incidents that we have in this industry. So photo documentation will protect the company, the employees, and hopefully the consumers, and give you a tool to identify particular training needs and evaluate employee performance.
And the insurance company is protected.
Very important. Good point. Is there anything else, Emma?
It looks like that's it for now. If
Okay.
you guys are all set.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Frank. It was beneficial to hear some of the important changes that are happening in the industry and how insurance requirements are focusing on critical things like cylinder fills going forward. So we thank you for your time and thank the audience for joining us and wish you all a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Frank.